So, the first thing we have to think about when we're planning an animation that also incorporates text is eventually what picture is it that we're going to use. So, somewhere I've opened up my animation, and I'm pointing this out because when you add your text, and I didn't really think about this all that well when I started because I didn't really know where I was going with this until it started to, become what it is now, is where do you want the text to be and what picture are you going to use, and do you want text to go over the image or not? I probably wouldn't have wanted this to go over my face. I probably would have pushed it either like somewhere around the perimeter of this image. But anyway, it's actually not too bad, so I kind of went with it. But if I were to start this again and do a second file, I would definitely think a little bit more about where this type was going. So, um, if we were to start with just our type, think about also what image you want to have in mind to use, because as you start doing your type, you want to avoid areas where pertinent imagery is going to be and keep it out of there. So that's just a tip, something to think about ahead of time. So let's minimize this, and as you can see, I have a lot of layers in here, and I'll show you how to easily duplicate these layers. That's actually why I liked doing this kind of animation, because I could quickly duplicate letters and make multiple colors and versions and make it kind of float and flash that way. So that's why this method of animation is kind of a good thing to learn, because it maybe would make things go faster. Of course, there's many programs and methods we can use, but we'll try the layering effect. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to work on my text, and I'm going to create a new document, and I'm thinking about the format that I want to use. I'm going to keep this on social. I think this makes a lot of sense for us to do it this way, because you could really utilize these for Instagram, let's say, or if you want to do like your YouTube or Twitter profile, you could create these animations specifically for that. So for me, I've got an Instagram page. I'm going to do an Instagram format, but use any of these templates that you think might be what you potentially use the file for. So I'm going to create, and I'm just going to do my name and keep it simple, but you might want to do phrases or, whatever it is that makes sense for the imagery that you're going to end up using. So I'm going to do my name. I'm going to keep it a self-portrait. It's going to be like a header or a banner, something that I can use as an identification.
Direction at this time would also finish the last names A through L. Please pass the third lunch. Thank you.
So I'm going to think about the type of font that I want to use when I'm in the type tool and I drop my menu down. I have a lot of different types that I could potentially choose from. Maybe I'll do this one. And when you're doing your animation, I would think about putting your type together using some of those previous skills that we already did, like destructive text editing or typing around the edge of a shape, any kind of design that you want to use, incorporate those skills that we had worked on in those other text assignments. So maybe for this, I will type along a shape, and I'm going to actually just draw a circle. It doesn't matter what my fill is at this point, because I'm eventually going to get rid of that shape. I'm just using it, as a guide here. So if I know ahead of time that I want to put my face somewhere in the middle, that's why I'm using this shape, because I might have my type go right around my face. I'll animate it to go in a circle. So I'm going to go back to the type tool and click somewhere on the edge. And now I know that my type is going to start typing around the edge of this circle.
Also, this is the last names M through Z. Please pass the third lunch. Thank you.
So this is, oops, let's see. So I'm hoping, yeah, okay, so this is a little bit small. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. Remember, you can select your type and resize it just like you would do in a Google Doc. And I want this to say Miss Iovani's world. It's going to hopefully spin around and animate as I continue to do this work. All right, now I'm in the move tool. So I don't need that shape anymore. I am going to hide it. I might end up right clicking and deleting that shape later on, but I do have my type, and I'm just noticing I goofed because it looks like some of it is bigger than the other. So I'm going back to my type tool. I'm in the right layer. I'm going to select it and just make sure that the font size is uniform. So at 120 points, maybe I can go a little bit bigger, 125, and just try to make it fit the entirety of the shape. Like I could still go bigger still. How about 140? All right, that might be good enough. And then I click the move tool to get out of there. So the nice thing about being able to work in layers is that we could actually duplicate this type very easily. Anytime you want to copy a layer, you should be able to right click and duplicate it, and it'll make a copy of that. So I'm starting to build copies of this because I'm going to have different type layers that end up spinning in my animation. So maybe what I'll do to start is just make 4 duplicates. The other way that you can duplicate your type or your layer, excuse me, is hitting Control J on your keyboard. So if I hit that twice, now I have 2 more layers here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on each layer, and I'm going to free transform. In other words, I'm going to rotate this so that it'll start to look like my type is spinning. So as long as you're in the right layer, then you can go to the edit menu and free transform, which gives you a bounding box. And you can resize this. So if I wanted the type to actually expand this way, maybe I could start by making it really small and then kind of animating it this way. You have to think about what direction you want your type to go in. So, I have a lot of choices here. But I think if I want my type to spin, then I'm going to free transform this in a way that actually rotates it. But again, you have the option to resize if you want. So when I want to do some rotation of any layer, when I hover my cursor right outside the bounding box, it's going to give me this double-headed arrow here, and I'm going to be able to turn it. So being that I have 4 layers here, I might just kind of give each one a quarter turn. Maybe that will work in my animation. I won't know till I really play it, and I might have to go back and tweak some things. Getting out of the free transform mode means you are clicking the enter button to get rid of that bounding box. And now I'm going to go in and edit free transform and rotate each one. Click the enter button to get out of free transform, click on the next layer, edit, free transform, hover right outside the box so you get those double arrows. And I'm only going to turn 3 of them and leave 1 of them in the right position. And so now I click the enter button, and there I go. So it's kind of making an interesting design here. The other thing you might want to do is you might want to do a background fill. So I like gradients. I'm going to grab my gradient tool. Remember, you can customize your gradient colors with the color picker, or you can choose one of the presets. So I'm just going to go with my pink and white because I programmed that in the last time I was working in Photopea. And the gradient tool works by clicking and dragging across. Now you also have shapes for the gradient tool: linear, radial, angle, reflected, and diamond. Definitely experiment with those. I think I'll go with radial and just pull it from the center. So now my pink will fade out. If I want to reverse that, I could do that too. And then that'll swap the colors. Actually, that looks pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go with that for my background. I can keep this shape in if I want it to be something that I animate later, or I can get rid of it. I was essentially using it for the typing on the edge to get that type to go in the shape that I want it to go in. All right, so now when you're animating, the way you would do that is you would double click on the titles of your layers. And right in front, you need to hold the shift key down and do the underscore key, the letter A, and the underscore key again. Anytime you type those in front of a layer, it's an indication to a GIF file to animate that. So the underscore A underscore has to be in the beginning of all of your titled layers. So you can make it easy for yourself by copying and pasting it if you wish. I was having a little bit of difficulty doing it because Photopea was making it disappear sometime. But when it's highlighted, hopefully if you hit Control C to copy it, you should be able to double click on your other layers and Control V to paste that coding in. So I guess in a sense, this is a little bit of computer code that we're doing. Control V to paste and get out of there. So if I want to preview this, I'm going to go to File and Export as a GIF. That's going to be my animated file. That looks better than I thought it would. So you have some options here, like whether you want to reverse frames or play with the speed. I found it to be a little bit laggy in Photopea. And as I built my animation, the one that I was showing as an example, I didn't even find that I had to tweak it that much. It actually looked pretty good. So I'll show you, how to build in extra frames if you want things to flow smoother. But that's just a basic animation in Photopea with the type tool. So try it out. One other quick thing that I did was not only did I save my animations, I'm going to put this in, I have a very specific folder for these in the photography shortcut folder. You guys might want to make a folder that specifically says, I have it in my destructive text logos that we had been working on. This is a new project, so this is maybe circle animation. I'll just call it something that I can recognize. And all of my stuff will go in here. So I'm going to save my GIF. Yesterday, the power went out and I lost everything. So this is always a type of thing that I'm reminding you guys to do, especially in Photopea, is save often. The power went out at school and it was like out for an hour and I was totally in the dark and I lost my stuff. So save every 5 minutes. After that, when the power came back on, I was like saving like a crazy person. So not only did I file and export that as a GIF, but I am also going to save this as a PSD file because then I'll have this chunk of layers to go back to and tweak if I need to. So I'm saving two types of files. I'm saving the GIF so that I have like just a preview of the animation that I'm doing as I work. And I'm also saving the PSD version so I can go back and open up the PSD version and continue working on those layers. So save as PSD. That actually went in my downloads folder, so that's where you guys will have to retrieve those. For me, everything automatically opens in Photoshop on my teacher computer at school, so I'm just going to say don't resolve. But this is the same thing I have going in Photoshop. But for you guys, you will have to go to your downloads folder, and then I've got my PSD version of the animation that has those layers, which is so essential to have. All right. So go ahead and play around with that, and practice makes perfect.